Happy Friday night, y'all. This is Jason with End the Simpademic. Friday night edition, of course, and end of the week. We finally got there, at least those of us who do work Monday through Friday schedules. For those who don't, hang in there. And all I've got to say is, I did talk about tonight's subject on my Twitter X page. Well, yesterday when I tried to record this episode, but couldn't because my voice was practically gone. And without a voice, it's pretty hard to film these. So anyway, we carry on to tonight, and here it is. We talk all about women, hypergamy, men who feel like they're out of their league, women who don't feel a man's husband energy, quote unquote, and all of the things that are wrong with the modern dating situation. However, there's one situation where all this gets thrown out the window. And once I get done with this, if you're in this, if you sense that you may be in this kind of situation, I want you to take a really good look at everything, because you may miss something that, to be honest with you, is just amazing and incredible. This was me in high school. And I am talking about a lady. I would lose track of her and she finds me again. Lose track of her and she finds me again. This cycle is basically lather, rinse, and repeat. And it's been that way for the past, we do some quick math here, 38 years. I was 14 when this started, and now I'm 52. The situation between two people, where all of this other stuff that we've talked about on this and many other channels, where it gets thrown out, is simply called the trauma bond. In my case, I'm talking about somebody who I've mentioned this story on my channel before, but I'll explain it again, just in case you haven't watched most of my other videos or whatnot. But I was a freshman in high school at age 14, and she was a sophomore dance team member. A striking blonde. Back then, about 5'8". Now she's 5'9". Absolute stunner. If this was Wayne's World, Garth would be sitting there saying, if this girl was president, she would be Abraham Lincoln. And there's really no other way to put it. By the trauma bond, I mean, in our particular instance, we both were in abusive households with alcoholic parents. I simply thought of her as a great friend. And it turns out I would find out a few years after high school, in one chance meeting, that she was really hoping it would be more. And the reason is this: we were each other's rock, sword, and shield during the high school years that I was in Katy, Texas. And I just thought she was the greatest friend in the whole world. She never said anything about it at the time, and it's one of her biggest regrets. She says that if she had been ever, the day that I left and moved away from Katy, And myself and my step siblings, we all moved to Colorado. I was crying on my last day at Taylor High School because of everything I was leaving behind, including her. And she looked at me and she says, I don't know what I'm going to do without you. Fast forward several years later, and she's actually done quite well. Because we both had dealt with abuse and alcoholism in our respective households. We literally were each other's oxygen during a very difficult time. But she would not say anything because of, honestly, social pressures. It was high school. It's not anything unusual. I was a freshman and she was a sophomore dance team member. Very popular gal. And she just didn't think that things would be okay if she expressed how she really felt. And given the immature social structures in high school, it's completely understandable. And I never thought of it as anything more than what I thought it was either, for the same reason. It's high school. I'm 14 years old. She is a dance team member. Friday Night Lights, Southeastern Texas. She tried out for the team for one main reason, and it's not anything that's usual. She did it because she wanted to get away from her family. And they wanted it to be something where they could not hold her back. She picked perfectly. Because in Texas, if your daughter makes the dance squad or the cheer squad, and in Katy it would be Rhodes Stadium, if that's where your daughter's going to be cheering or dancing at the football game on a Friday night, you can't hold them back. She had her parents by the throat. Because if they tried, it would have been something out of The Waterboy, where the whole town shows up at Bobby Boucher's hospital where Mama is at, with pitchforks and flames, insisting that he come and play. I kind of am being sort of exaggerating, but not really. It's Texas. And I can't really mention her name on a public channel because I don't want to expose her to anything. And she has just reappeared in my life again. For like the third time in 38 years. She just always finds me. And looking to my God in this particular situation, since she's not a woman of faith and is very honest about it, I don't think she's that. But I wanted to explain to everybody tonight that if any other guy out there who's watching this happens to be in a situation where you have connected with a woman based on a trauma bond, you have to throw the rest of that other garbage out. Because this is the type of connection, and I did not know this at 14, and I could not be blamed for not knowing it at 14. But if you are in a scenario in which you have a bond that's built over a shared trauma, that overrides everything else about modern women, hypergamy, being out of your league. You would, if you're in that situation, you have to just chuck all of that out the window because it is irrelevant in a connection of this nature. She is now 54 years old, never married, no children. And here's why. Because she ultimately, as I said, after I left Texas, and she wondered if it was going to be okay, how she was going to be okay. Well, she did great. She has a doctorate in computer science. Wound up getting high-paying jobs with computer manufacturers in southeastern Texas. Built a career. Turns out she got laid off a few years ago and has now entered the public sector. Doesn't make nearly as much money as she used to. But the reason why she never... It's like, well, why wouldn't somebody who's making $250,000 a year not ever get married or have children? The answer is a sad one. Because she always believed that her future man had to make more than her. And I recently told her, I says, you didn't have a dating pool. You had a dating eye drop. Instead of a pool, she basically had an eye drop. And it's sad because modern day culture tells women that the man needs to be making more, maybe even exponentially so. There's women out there who are looking for men who make $600,000 a year. My old friend wasn't even looking for that. Just somebody who made more than her. $250,000 a year. And even at that level, we're talking about a fraction of a percent of the male population. It's like less than 0.05%. Which in urban areas such as southeastern Texas, we just do a real quick calculation of math in my head. The greater Houston region at the time had about 5 million people. One 1% of 5 million is 5,000. No, 50,000. So 1% of the, and then half that. So 1% of the male population is about 25,000 people. Now you're talking about 5/100ths of that 25,000. She is down to about 500 men in the 5 million person Houston, Sugar Land, Baytown, Woodlands, Galveston, etc. metropolitan area who would meet her qualifications. They talk about finding a needle in a haystack. Well, you're more likely to find a needle in a haystack than to meet those particular odds. Simply put, this culture and in this environment has created many numerous tragedies such as this. Obviously, at age 54, children is out of the question. And at her point, a relationship is not going to be easy. And again, she's a open atheist, and I am a devout Christian. Those two just don't mix. But it still gives me the story to tell for anybody else out there. If you have anybody out there, if you're a man and if you're a woman, and you have a man in your life who you have a traumatic bond over, or vice versa, if you're a man like myself with a traumatic bond with a woman, throw the rest of that garbage out and take a look at what you have. And maybe take the time to see if maybe that someone special is staring you right in the face. Once again, I was too young. I didn't know this stuff. But if you are, well, older than 14 anyway, let's just say if you're an adult and you have somebody like this in your life, you may be looking at your own answer. And she or he might be staring right at you. Because this is the one situation in which everything that the manosphere tells you is dead wrong. Everything about the hypergamy, everything about with the women chasing chads, the chads playing the field, having the pick of every woman that they want. If you are sitting there in a traumatic bond, that is the strongest bond between people that you can possibly have. Those types of bonds, are not even necessarily romantic ones. There's stories about the band of brothers in World War II. A traumatic bond in a life or death scenario. Traumatic bonds are some of the strongest kinds in all of humanity. If you're in one with someone of the opposite gender, take a hard look. Because you may be looking at your life partner. So that is my message. I've been holding it for 48 hours. I have enough of my voice back to share it with you. Thankful to God for that. This has been probably one of my more emotional episodes of End the Simpademic. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm happy to share it. Y'all have a good night. Have a great weekend. We'll see you tomorrow at some point. Peace out.